Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Plutonium Show.
We're so happy to have you with us. Welcome.
Well, do you want to explain to them why we're here on a Tuesday instead of a Monday?
My bad. Sorry, guys. Don't squat without
Squat?
Squat. Don't chest press without a spotter.
I think that's where you got it mixed up. Spotter, squat.
Because, oops, nuh-uh. Don't do it. Even if it's a lightweight, even if you think you can do it, you need a spotter for a chest press. Full stop.
Can I just tell you, I have told him this 100 times.
You have.
And you just didn't listen yesterday.
Yep. Put on my Australian hat and went, she'll be right, mate. Which means it's not going to be right. That's what that means, yeah.
But you're fine?
Absolutely fine. No broken nose. No anything wrong. Just a bit of a bruise. And I'm sure it'll be gone by the next time we film.
I think it's more than the bruise is pretty nasty, which is why it's covered up, by the way, just so you don't get alarmed because it's just superficial. And it's all good.
All good. Here we are.
All right. So I also know that it's election day for you folks over in the US, and it's probably really nerve-wracking and stressful. I know it's a very tight race. So hopefully this podcast can help get your mind off things as we talk all things royal.
And what are we talking about today?
Well, on the docket today is, firstly, we're going to touch upon Prince William's homelessness documentary, which I, luckily enough, so the only, silver lining from what happened yesterday is that I got the time to watch it. Both episodes. I wouldn't have been able to had we filmed yesterday. So I wouldn't have been able to talk about this at all. So there's that. It's received a bit of criticism. And, some positive reviews, but what I've seen when I, did some research is quite a bit of criticism, which is to be expected anytime anyone puts something out on the internet.
Yep.
But we're also going to talk about his brother, not just his brother, but you may have all heard by now that Prince Harry has made a virtual appearance at a NATO meeting. Your first instinct is, what on earth is Prince Harry doing talking to people, I'm guessing higher ups, at a NATO meeting? It makes no sense whatsoever. It had to do with the Invictus Games, and boy, do we have a lot to say about that.
Oh boy. Yeah, we'll contribute to the criticism of that one.
Because it's warranted.
Yep, absolutely.
So let's get on to Prince William's homelessness documentary. I'm not going to, run you through the documentary. I believe it's on Disney Plus globally and ITV if you're in the UK. So let us know if you've seen it. I am going to be honest. I was going to watch it purely out of a sense of duty towards the audience and this channel, and just to keep informed because this is what we do on the channel. I didn't expect to be invested in it, but I was. I think it was a very well made, it's 2 episodes, 45 minutes each. Very well made documentary in the sense that, at least for me personally, I was sucked in from the beginning. It was interesting from the beginning, and it was very touching as well. You have real people who've been through homelessness or who are going through it, and Prince William's very heavily featured in it as well.
Oh, that's good. He didn't just do the top and tail and leave.
Exactly, which is what Meghan and Harry are known for.
I wasn't even referencing them. I was just referencing bad documentaries.
Yeah, well, that's why most of their documentaries are bad, because apart from the Harry and Meghan Cry Fest, which, by the way, speaking of Cry Fest, I was on the verge of tears every time I had to watch an episode back in December 2 years ago, because I was covering every episode. I was bored out of my mind.
Yeah. But this one sucked you in.
Yeah, and that one was ironically the Harry and Meghan one. It was meant to be salacious and dramatic and airing dirty laundry, and I was still bored to the verge of tears. I'm not even exaggerating.
Because they have nothing to say.
It's everything we've heard before, and it's so petty and boring. But yes, the other documentaries they've been involved with, you just barely live to lead. Didn't even cover that one. I did an overall video about it because they literally just used the same clip of Meghan and Harry, top and tail, introducing it.
So the same clip, but wow, they couldn't record 2 clips.
Yep,
wow.
Exact same clip. And then Heart of Invictus last year, flop, major flop. And it's just, you'd think it was meant to be about a good cause. We'll get to that because that's a different topic for today. So I really liked that we got to see a lot of Prince William, because part of the allure, and I think part of why I personally got sucked in, was because it's a rare thing to get access to Prince William.
Yep.
He doesn't flaunt himself out there the way Meghan and Harry do, to the point where we're all sick and tired and driven to the point of tears.
Yeah. In fact, that's true of most of the elite, for lack of a better term, because I know he is part of the elite, but it's hard to put him into the same ballpark as like the Mark Zuckerbergs and the Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
And so it is actually good to see him, but also it's good to see him even just not doing just hey, here's my product, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Here are my AR glasses.
The thing about Prince William, and I don't know if a lot of people will agree, but I think in our audience you would, he's very warm. And I've always said this way before the documentary. And anytime I saw him in the news, you get this sense of this Big Brother energy.
Yeah.
And not Big Brother the show.
No, not that. That's that ruined the name Big Brother now, didn't it? Jeez.
It no, he's my big brother. I'm gonna be fine. You know, that kind of feeling, which is such a good quality for a future king of England to have. He radiates this protector kind of aura.
Yeah.
And he's also so genuine. You know, the cameras were on him. Yes, you can argue he was turning it on for the camera. But some of us have the ability to see through that.
Yeah.
And you know, and I'm sure a lot of you here, especially, you know, when you watch channels like mine where we talk about the phoniness of Meghan Markle.
Yeah, I mean, she's the epitome of phoniness. She's the definition of it. Her face is next to the word in the dictionary.
Pretty much. I mean, for me, it was the engagement interview, and then I clocked out and I forgot about her. But for you, it was the wedding, because you never saw the engagement interview. You were instantly like, nah, you zeroed in on her.
Yeah, you can smell it a mile away.
Yeah, so you can sense phoniness, and Prince William has none of that. Princess of Wales as well, beautiful Catherine, has none of that. They both radiate warmth, and this really came through in the documentary. Let me know if you agree, if you've seen it. And one more thing, speaking of warmth, remember how Meghan sat there in the Netflix documentary that drove me to tears and basically harped on and on about how she's a hugger? I'm American, we hug. And Prince William in particular, and even Catherine, were very put off by her hugginess because she was a stranger.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about, you know, wouldn't you feel weird if some random chick you've never met before launched herself at you?
Yeah, especially when you're forcing it. Like, you can tell when someone's like, hey, we've just met. Now I'm going to invade your personal space. That is your first impression of me.
Exactly. In this documentary, I lost count of the number of people Prince William hugged. He initiated. He would go in for it.
Yeah.
And it seemed very genuine. Again, not something he's not used to, and he's just putting on for the camera like he's some snobby prince, you know, who doesn't even want to touch a commoner. No. And people were literally referring to him in the kitchens when he was helping. Hey, William, can you round up the plates?
Wow.
And he's like walking around chatting with people going, are you done? And he's...
Wow. Oh my goodness. On that note, can I just say a personal experience I've had is throughout my upbringing in church, some church goers will only refer to their pastor or their priest as Pastor so-and-so. And if you say their name without pastor in front of it, it's like the worst thing in the world.
Wow.
Right? And so that's just something that immediately I'm like, you can call William without the prince in front. That is, he really is the genuine article. Wow.
He doesn't seem up himself. Yeah. And you can really tell he's genuinely invested in this. First of all, he picked it. You know, royals have the privilege of choosing their causes. And this is a cause that has been dear to him from his childhood. And he touches upon this because of his mother. Yeah. His mother, they showed a lot of exclusive photos of him as a little boy. A couple of these photos had Harry as well. But, you know, circling back to what I said about William having this genuine warmth, and he's genuinely a good person, regardless of, you know, we all have faults. No one's claiming he's perfect. But you can even see it in him as a little boy. Yeah. You know? Such lovely photos. And he's been very invested in this area for his whole life. And he does credit his mother. And now he's trying to do the same with his children. He spoke about that.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So Yeah, he's a hugger, and he's been hugging people, and he's, I suppose, like his mother. That's what people in the documentary were saying. Because you all know, Diana was before our time, and so we're really not up to, I don't know much information about like contemporary reporting, I suppose, of Princess Diana. But you do always hear she had this warmth, and she could put people at ease.
Yes, I remember seeing photos of her when I was very young, and when I compare how I felt as a child and when I saw Meghan at the wedding, right? None of that is the experience of a person growing up. To me, that's a very instinctual thing that's built as a child. And my instinct, seeing Diana in photos and in video, never had that alarm bell of this person is evil, this person, stay away from this person.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, kids are actually, a lot of babies cry when they see Meghan.
Exactly.
I'm not even lying. When they do the walkabouts and stuff, they just one look at her and they break down.
Yeah. I mean, as a fully grown adult, I feel like if I saw her, I'd break down too, honestly. I'd just lose it. Yeah, I'd be like, why is she here? Go away.
Oh my God.
But another thing I would say on Princess Diana is that I think her children can be a reflection of her, right? And with William, we see the good side of Diana. We see a lot of good come from William. But we also see the bad side with Harry,
Yeah, that's actually fair enough. Wow.
Because at the end of the day, children are the product of their parents. Yep. Even absent parents, children are a product of.
Yeah. You know what astounds me? You can say the most profound things sometimes. and not saying you're not an intelligent person who's capable of profound thought, but Zach's not as invested in, like, usually what happens is, it's okay if I say that I do all the research.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so basically I'm more invested in the topic, and then I come to Zach and I tell him my findings, and then we kind of pick and choose together what to talk about every week. But it's me doing all the groundwork and bringing it to you, but you still say the most profound things, even though you're not on top of everything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm trying to compliment you and I'm failing.
No, I really appreciate it. Thank you. I think that's what makes this such an interesting dynamic on the podcast, though, is that I'm not invested in these things throughout the week. And I try to come at it with a very fresh perspective.
And people notice that and they appreciate it.
Yeah. I'm glad because this happens all the time. Slight detour in music. Sometimes you are so lost in writing a song and you need to just show it to someone else who hasn't heard it.
Yep.
And you just get a fresh perspective. And that's what I hope I can bring.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's why we've been going for 112 episodes.
Oh, yeah.
So, criticism. It's what you would expect. Just I'll let you know. So, Graham Smith of The Guardian says, Prince William should leave homelessness to the experts. Now, I have three main criticisms, and I'm going to tackle them one by one. As someone who watched it, he does consult with the experts. He's kind of just what he's doing, and he's saying this. He's using his platform and his privilege that he's very well aware of. We're going to touch on that in the next criticism, to bring attention to a problem. He knows his position as a light, a shining, very bright light, that he can shine on an issue that has been going on for far too long and has only been getting worse. He's not running around trying to figure this out by himself or with his palace staff even. He's consulting charities and organizations like the Salvation Army, and there's one here I listed which was very heavily involved. Where did you go? I have a lot of notes. Rising Stars. These are all organizations that are, boots on the ground. They have been dealing with this for decades, and he is coming to them going, what can I do? So he is consulting with the experts. I don't know if Graham Smith watched it.
That was going to be the first thing I asked, because it doesn't sound like he did. It sounds like he just went, well, Prince William thinks he's got all the answers. No, I don't think he does. And I don't think the experts have all the answers either. In fact, when humanity is at its best, when we work together. So why are we gatekeeping someone with a platform and influence from tackling a real issue? Even if Prince William cannot do anything about it, boots on the ground, bringing awareness to the issue and starting a conversation is immensely important. It's like there are things we talk about on the podcast that we can do nothing about. But by opening the conversation, by bringing awareness to real, true causes around the world, Prince William's doing a lot more than a critic.
He's doing a lot more. And just to your point, he's actually doing way more than he said. It's not enough to just talk about it.
Yep.
I don't want to just talk about it. I want to do something about it. And when he says this in the interview segments of the documentary, that's when really you can tell he's really earnest about this. It's not just some vanity project for him like Meghan and Harry. He is invested. And also, he didn't just talk to experts. I would say he went one step above, and he actually spoke to homeless people who have either recovered and been through it in their past, in their youth primarily, or people who are still going through it. And he is asking them, how do you think the system failed you? What caused your homelessness? And he's sitting with them face to face. So yeah, Graham Smith, I don't think you have watched the documentary, or if you did, you were probably on your phone at the same time.
Oh my goodness, if you were on your phone and watching something on the big TV, you're not watching the thing on the big TV. Get off TikTok, get off Instagram. Focus on one thing at a time. Let's fix our attention spans, people. Oh, Graham, come on.
I think I triggered you. Holy, what? Calm down.
By the way, one of the things I love about Pluto is when we watch a movie, she doesn't get on her phone. That is one of the first things I noticed about her in our relationship when we started dating. It's just such a breath of fresh air. I'll tell you what.
I'm a cinephile. I love movies.
She drags me to the cinema. Huh.
I would never disrespect them in that way.
Exactly.
All right. Moving on to Jan, I think. Jan, her surname looks French to me. Moir? Or is it Moyer? Of the Daily Mail. She says, we need to know the how. And then she focused on the irony of a billionaire future king attempting to tackle homelessness. Now, very briefly, before we get to the irony, because I'm sure you have a lot, this is one of those meta kind of everyone can chime in. You don't have to watch it to comment on whether a privileged person has the right to dabble in something like homelessness. But on the how, it's refer to my answer above kind of thing. He did talk to these charities and organizations, and he talked to homeless people, and you can only put so much in a 45-minute episode or in a 90-minute documentary as a whole. You know, you in the back of it's, you know, same thing here. Honestly, for small-time YouTubers, we think about giving you the best parts. We don't want you to get bored, because in Prince William's instance, it's not going to do him well if people zone out and click out of the documentary.
Some people, if you told them something was 6 hours, they'd be like, I'm not watching that.
Well, Meghan and Harry, their show was, well, I mean, granted it was per episode, but it was a 6-hour cry fest.
But the irony is they'll complain about 6 hours of like a documentary about a real cause, and then they'd go and binge 12 hours of their favorite show. Yeah. Probably on their phone as well. It's the human condition. I don't know. But basically, we have to remember that there is a lot of background work going on with this project. It's been in the works for years. He only launched it officially last year, homewards. I believe last year. But Prince William, for instance, in 2009, he slept out under a bridge, I believe, to experience it firsthand. Wow.
Now, of course, he had his security detail. Wouldn't you, if you were the future Prince of England and you had a target on your back?
I genuinely don't want Prince William to get hurt, because he wants to get in the shoes of a homeless person and experience it.
He did.
I think all of us should want the security there, because now he's gone through it. Even just one night, I mean, that's going to tell you something. Yeah. If you've ever tried to sleep on the floor for one night in your own house and how uncomfortable it is to your own bed.
Have you tried sleeping in your car?
Yeah.
I've tried. It's uncomfortable.
It sucks. I mean, my best childhood friend would talk about how he'd find a really comfortable rock when he was in Scouts, and then there's you in the army.
Yeah. I didn't want to bring up the army because
I'll bring it up for you.
I have a lot of stories, and that's completely just. I don't want to make it sound like I'm complaining, because that was the worst. I'm going to be honest with everyone. I'm a city girl. I grew up in a city, and our field, I was going to say trips. They're not trips.
Yeah, they're not trips.
Our training exercises, the word completely eluded me, were the worst part of it for me. I'm not an Australian I'm not born and bred Aussie. I've never been into camping. And so that's when I had to switch on like autopilot mode.
Yeah.
And not think. Because if I thought, I would drive myself to tears. I remember it so clearly.
Some of the things you've told me, my goodness.
Hallucinations, snake in my sleeping bag. Are you really an Australian soldier if you haven't had a snake somewhere near you, though?
Yeah.
Like, chime in if you've served in the Australian army.
I mean, are you really an Australian if you haven't had a snake somewhere near you? It just kind of comes with the territory.
So yes, that is not comfortable. The reason I didn't want to bring it up was because that's part of it's part of the job. I didn't want to sound like I'm complaining, but to be fair, it was the hardest part.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sleeping outfield, would not recommend.
Yeah. And when we're walking the streets of any city and we see homeless, it is tough to think, how do they do it?
Yeah.
And back onto the first point too, when we were talking about William asking them how they got in that situation. When I throw a few coins at a homeless person, I genuinely wonder, how are they here? How did they get here? Was it their own vices? Was it circumstances outside of their control?
Yeah.
And I'm always curious, and Prince William here is answering the questions instead of pretending that he's mightier than thou.
Absolutely. And that's what he did. That's why, Jan Moir, have you watched the documentary? Because a major component of the documentary was asking, again, the organizations, and most particularly the homeless people themselves, how did this happen? And here are a few answers just to prove to you that they discussed it. So the pandemic, it's not a shocker. Cost of living crisis that it caused. It is no coincidence that the rate of homelessness has grown exponentially since the pandemic. So there's that. No fault notices. When a landlord gives you a notice of eviction through no fault of your own, that's legal. And we've been through it.
Yeah.
We've been, 2 years ago, we were told to leave where we were renting for zero reason.
Yep.
And it's devastating because, whether you're young or old, you've set it's your home.
Yeah.
But it's not really.
That's kind of the point of, especially renting. Like sometimes you just don't want to buy a place in an area, but you need to live in an area for a time, right?
Because you can't afford to buy a place with the cost of everything.
Exactly.
In Australia, I'm sure it's just as bad everywhere else.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have to be homeless to all feel the cost of living, but I cannot believe that homelessness can be as simple as someone being just evicted from their rental. I mean, do landlords not have hearts? Do they not? I understand if someone wants to give notice because they need to use a property for something else, or if they want to sell it, whatever it is. But if someone's on the verge of homelessness, is the landlord not aware of that?
And what was really heartbreaking in this particular case that they used as an example, the woman who was a foreigner, but I'm going to assume also a British, at least permanent resident, if not citizen, she had 3 jobs. 3 jobs, 5 children, and she was working her butt off. So there was that, which, by the way, Prince William wants to address that from a legislative, at a legislative level. They want to, because it's called in the UK, I forget now, something clause 9 or something, but basically it's illegal. It's lawful. It's lawful for landlords to do this. And yes, Prince William now wants to tackle this issue from a legislative level, which is really great.
That is incredible.
And then there is this one, which I'm sure not a lot of us consider. Young people, in particular children, I'm talking 15, 16, escaping abusive households. There was one woman who is now doing very well, and she featured in this documentary, who left her home at 15 because it was far too abusive for her to stand it anymore. And she said, on my first night there, as scared as I was as a 15-year-old vulnerable girl, she still felt it was better than her home environment.
Wow. Imagine how horrible someone's home has to be where they would rather sleep on the street. And I've heard stories. I've known people in similar situations, and I understand a little bit about that. You know, knowing what those people have been through, yeah, you would do anything to get away from that abuse.
Yep.
But why is there no place for someone who's 15 or 16 to get away from an abusive family? That's a crisis in itself.
There are these hostels that are featured actually in this documentary. Some of them do an excellent job, and Prince William and his partners basically speak to the heads of these organizations. Some of them don't. Some of them just don't care. They don't try to address the core issue. Yep. What caused your homelessness? They just see you as another, in and out, revolving door of people.
That's not solving anything really, is it?
And Prince William wants to tackle that issue as well. And then, of course, we have what we know is very common: addiction and disability. Disability can also lead to homelessness, because we all know about discrimination. That's why anti-discriminatory laws exist when it comes to hiring disabled people. Some people lose their jobs. Let's say a man has been doing a trade for 30 years and suddenly it's all he knows how to do.
Yeah.
And suddenly in his 50s, where we're already suffering from ageism, men suffer from it too in the workplace, by the way. It's not just women. And they don't have the resources to go back to school, and that's it. They're out in the street.
My goodness.
Yep.
I mean, that also seems like a wider issue. Can people change industries? Because what if your industry happened to collapse during COVID?
Yeah.
What if you are... There are companies I've heard of, which I thought to myself, okay, there's no way they're going to shut their doors. They're going to be in business forever, right?
And then they're gone.
And then they go. And it wasn't even COVID. It was just change of the times, whether it be online shopping, less retail shopping, and those little things. And I know people who have worked at their jobs for decades.
Yep.
I even know one person who was in a very similar situation, except probably a little bit higher in their field, but they were an expert in their field.
Yep.
And it was actually a service that you would think would never shut down, and they still got let go during COVID. And it's mind-boggling.
And that can lead to homelessness. This is the scary part. Unless you're born to a very privileged family and you have a good relationship with them and they'll take you in and they're not, horrible and toxic, any one of us can be vulnerable to it. And they really drive that point home in this documentary. Now, there's really a lot more to talk about, but we're on limited time and we really want to get to the Meghan and Harry topic. But hopefully that responds to Jan Moyer or Moir. He did focus on the how and the why.
Get off your phone, Jan. Watch the documentary.
Yeah. In terms of whether a prince and a billionaire future king should be dabbling in this, as briefly as possible, and of course, everyone please chime in the comments as well. But considering time, what do you think?
Everyone should be dabbling in this. This is an everyone issue. The fact that even one person can be homeless through no fault of their own is a humanity crisis.
It's a travesty. No
one should be ignoring this, let alone people in positions of power who can do something about it. So, this is everyone's problem.
That's pretty much spot on what Prince William said, really. He's like, how can I ignore this? And to be fair, he is doing something about it. So he is now, he owns the Duchy of Cornwall, which is why he's a billionaire. Okay. He used to belong to King Charles when he was the Prince of Wales. And so what he's doing is he started up a project, which will be ready by next year already, where they've built homes as a temporary in-between for homeless people to live safely as they find a more permanent solution.
So what you're saying is that Prince William has now done more for homelessness than Jan. And who was the previous critic?
Graham.
Okay, sounds like he's got solutions to this problem, not just witty criticisms for a documentary they didn't watch.
And he's not just doing it in the Duchy of Cornwall. They plan to do this so there are 6 targeted locations that they're really focusing on for now, for the beginning. And they want to do the exact same thing in those 6 locations. So he's doing what he can. Should he be disqualified because he lives in palaces? Some people, some of these critics, including, I believe, Jan Moore and also Marianne Levy or Levi for iNews, who called the documentary an abject failure, by the way. Look, to each their own. Things are subjective. I'm really not trying to attack these people purely because, I'm not some Williams sycophant. I really want to make that clear. I told you I didn't really even feel like watching this documentary to begin with. And then I got sucked in. I'm going to compliment something where compliments are due. Some people are just not going to see it the same way. So maybe she thought it was an abject failure. She says it's because he failed to discuss the why.
No, if you watch the documentary, again, watch it. Get off your phone. Focus on the documentary. And even if you're, but I have to be on my phone to take notes so I can write this report. Pause
it. That's what I did.
Write your notes. Keep watching.
Yep.
It already sounds like these people had their mind made up before they went into it, if they even watched it.
Yeah, I don't know if they're royalists or anti-monarchists or whatever, and there's an agenda.
Sounds like it. I was gonna say it sounds like anti-monarchists.
So just very quickly, I want to give you some numbers. There have now been over 300 organizations that have joined Prince William's initiative, and the Rising Stars program, one of the organizations, has created 500 new places for people experiencing homelessness to stay in, all thanks to Prince William. And basically, these are real causes with real results. Unlike the vanity projects of Meghan and Harry, and specifically Meghan's whole fake BS women's rights issue that she keeps harping on about like it's the 1950s. Speaking of women's rights issues, remember the whole "Where's Kate"? I'm not trying to be disrespectful. That's what the hashtag was. When she was sick and before she announced her cancer diagnosis, which we all know she only announced because she wanted to put a stop to all the disgusting conspiracy theories and fake imagery of her being bruised and battered at the hands of William. Sickening things that have been allowed to be put out there. Now, apparently, according to the BBC, there are sanctions against Russia. For this misinformation campaign, as they called it. So 6 Russian agencies and individuals accused of being a part of this disinformation campaign are facing sanctions from the UK government.
There you go. There you go. There's a little bit of a thinker, isn't it? How much of this was genuine people hashtagging? How much of it was just bots?
What concerns me about the Russian bots argument, as someone who's been on the receiving end of it with the Johnny Depp, like back in 2020, before the US trial. So we were in the minority. No one was speaking out in defense of Johnny, and barely anyone was covering the UK trial. So the small cohort of people who were, including myself, were accused by Amber Heard of being Russian bots. So I have a little bit of a, experience with being falsely accused of being a Russian bot, because last I checked, I'm made of
pretty human.
Yeah, I'm real. Yeah. And I even made a video joking about it 4 years ago now. Wow, it's been that long. So there's that angle. But it's funny because in this instance, we know the Sussex squad is real. We know they exist. Are they Russian? Pretty sure they're not.
I don't think so. But at the same time, who's to say that part of the Sussex squad isn't Russian? The thing that's kind of tickling my alarm bells a little bit is, remember, was it Lauren Chen?
Yes, Lauren Chen.
And she was pretty much in bed with Russia, I believe. Yep. But also
those are the allegations. I don't believe they've been proven, but those are the allegations. So, if people who may not know Lauren Chen, by the way, we only know about her because of the audience, who informed me 2 years ago that there was this woman in America on the younger side. I think that's why people were trying to link me up with her or something, in her 20s. And she was, saying some really valid points against Meghan and Harry. She was putting out some really valid critique. I checked her out, did not vibe at all. And this was 2 years ago now. And I never went back. And then now we hear recently in September that she's been accused of basically spreading misinformation in America, trying to interfere with the US election. She's basically Russia's puppet. Yeah. Just to give them some context.
Great, because I've kind of missed a few of the details there too. But I do remember her being tied to Russia, allegedly. That's why I'm thinking it's not impossible. Now, how much of it is actual people and how much of it is, and the thing with Russian bots is I don't use the term Russian bots as just, an actual automated bot.
Yeah, you mean Russian operatives is what you're trying to say?
People who are just being told to say something and spitting it out. So yeah, it makes you think.
I will say that Putin has staunchly denied these allegations, and he says this is all political unrest within each country. Stop blaming Russia for it. Don't know. We're not going to venture into that territory. I will stick with what we really focus on in this channel, which is free speech, censorship, even as a lawyer, defamation. And there is a limit to free speech. Some people think you can say whatever the hell you want. Mm-hmm. And maybe you can. But then when you face the consequences of the law, which are the limits, you're just going to have to deal with it. Primarily defamation.
Free speech should not be free consequence.
Without free of consequence.
Free of consequence. Yeah.
So, but there are measures in place to limit free speech. That's my concern with all this disinformation BS, because if you read the BBC article, which I'm not going to go through because we really don't have the time for that, they drag in politics. Of course they do. They drag in political unrest and, election interference and et cetera, et cetera. It's not just about Catherine. So my concern sometimes is they're using legitimate instances, such as the Where's Kate campaign. That was disgusting, and it should not be allowed.
It shouldn't, no.
And there should be consequences like sanctions. But first of all, don't pick and choose. Go sanction the Sussex squad. We're all waiting for you to do it.
Please, would someone please? Because, lying and being able to prove that those are lies, a pretty big deal. Lying doesn't get punished enough on the internet.
Well, they're basically terrorists.
Pretty much.
It's beyond lying what they do.
Exactly. Another thing that it's just a little sprinkle, fun fact, Russia just sued Google for $20 decillion, which is the number 20, and I think 30 zeros in the end.
Yeah.
And Russia sued them because YouTube and Google refused to suspended the accounts of Russian news channels. So don't know if that plays into it too. Who knows?
What do you mean?
As in maybe...
Oh, you mean the suspension may have been connected to all the disinformation allegations?
Could be, because that's kind of, reading between the lines, it sounds like that's it.
Yeah, it sounds like it's plausibly connected.
Yeah.
But the thing is, as I was saying, you're using a legitimate instance where we all agree this should never have happened to Catherine or anyone in her position, or basically anyone for that matter. But then they're hijacking it, like Meghan and Harry hijack legitimate causes to use for their own nefarious ends. And as people who have been censored on this platform, I've had videos taken down that I've had to sneakily re-upload. I have to say I have a huge bonus of being a lawyer, because in my brain I have a whole kind of information repository of what I can do to get around and play the system. But not everyone has that privilege.
No. And the fact that you have to think like a lawyer to try and get around speaking your mind for valid criticism. Obviously, there are people who will take it too far. But the fact that people who have legitimate points to make have to go, well, I can't say that. Remember when we couldn't say the word COVID on YouTube?
Or even domestic violence, sexual assault. We couldn't say that. Just 3 years ago, we would say SA, DV. And it always sounded so ridiculous.
Because it was.
And I'm really glad YouTube's addressed that now, and we can say these words as long as it's a fleeting mention and you're not really focusing, no graphic imagery. But basically, my concern is that this disinformation angle that we know the media, the mainstream media, is really running with. We're seeing it everywhere. I've seen it a lot in your US election coverage. It's really towing a fine line between, we're trying to make sure, like fake news and defamation is not gone unpunished, versus censorship. Because, that's the point I was trying to make. We have been censored here, and we're small-time nobodies, and we've been censored for saying facts. Not even my opinion, fact. So it's really dangerous. I'm not a fan of this whole sanctions for disinformation in a general sense.
It's a slippery slope, and once you start, what it comes down to is, at the end of the day, the person who should be able to distill information and find the truth is down to the individual.
Absolutely.
We should be looking at everything in front of us and be able to see the lies. We're humans. We know when someone's lying to us. So we should be able to see everything. And that also means getting out of our echo chambers and making sure that we're not stuck on one side that, even the YouTube algorithm has pushed us in, let alone politics. But we should be smart enough to do that. We should never take anyone's word at face value, especially on the internet. Don't even take us. Go and proof check us. Go and check that everything we've said, whether it's factual, and compare our opinions against your own and against that of others. We are smart for a reason. We have brains. We need to use them.
Absolutely. And by the way, since we're on the topic of making up your own mind, we have partnered with Ground News. You may have heard of them before, maybe on this channel, maybe on different channels, which is basically a news aggregator. And it allows you to make up your own mind on what to believe. It tells you what the political bias and leanings are of every publication. And it helps you see the blind spots. So things that you may not have heard of because the media is not really covering it.
Yep.
So if you're interested in having access to such a service, check out check.ground.news/Lost Beyond Pluto. You can get a 15% off offer on a Vantage plan, which is the plan that I have. Gives you full access on both the app and the website. And try it out today if you want to use your own brain and not be told what's true and what's false. All right. After weeks of speculation, which we refuse to participate in on this channel. Where's Harry? Where's Harry? Are they divorced? Are they separated? Yada, 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 yada. He has resurfaced virtually, not in person, at a NATO military committee at the headquarters of NATO in Brussels, I believe. Now, I think all of us are adults on this channel. We all know what NATO is. And I'm sure we're all scratching our heads going, hold up, did I read that right? What's Prince Harry doing speaking with heads of NATO?
Yeah, a bit concerning, isn't it?
It's confusing. This happened on the 30th of October. And the reason he's there virtually is because it was in Brussels, as I said, and he couldn't go. And from what we can see in his background, he is home in Montecito. You can even see a wedding photo of the two of them.
Maybe his private jet was in the shop.
In the shop. Some people are saying it's a digital background. I don't know. I don't delve into that. I think the wedding photo is there to dispel the split up rumors. That's as far as I'm going to go with this being intentional setup.
Yeah, she totally dressed the set behind him.
Yeah. Oh, she absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the point of him being there was to, and I'm reading from the NATO press release itself, he briefed the military committee on the breadth and development of the Invictus program and the progress it's making to expand the scope of its mission. The core purpose of Invictus is to support the recovery and rehabilitation of wounded, injured, and sick service members through sports and adventure. And then it goes on to say basically that they're trying to continue to establish a global community. Look, bottom line, he's looking for fundraisers. He's looking for money because this thing's expensive. I heard that it's costing Canada $30 million to run next year's Invictus Games in Canada, in Whistler.
And how much of that budget is going towards Meghan's outfits?
That's an excellent question.
Because Invictus is the Meghan Markle fashion show now.
Absolutely. That's why here, when I read out the core purpose of Invictus is to support veterans, it may very well have been upon its inception in 2014 up until 2017 when Meghan hijacked the scene as his girlfriend in her notorious ripped jean look, honestly looking quite disheveled for someone who's doing a global debut. I don't know what it is with her and her disheveled looks, like, oh, look, I'm the cool girl. I just rolled out of bed.
I also think it's extremely disrespectful to him, though. This is his thing, right? Whether whoever started it, regardless, this is, as far as we know, this is Harry's thing. And if it was her thing, she would rock up dressed to the nines. I'm not saying she should have done that, but she would rock up at least. I can't even say dressed to purpose.
On theme.
On theme, at least.
Yep.
Overdone, but on theme. And so it's like, oh yeah, it's Harry's thing. Whatever, I'll just throw something on. Like, what?
It's not even just, I'll just throw something on. I will throw something on that will make people talk about what I threw on. She knows what she's doing. She could have worn jeans without a rip. She knew exactly what she was doing. She has an obsession with mentioning and looking like, this cool American barefoot with ripped jeans. She even mentions it in the Netflix documentary, please.
Now
reality.
that we've had William's documentary, we're reminded of what a real documentary looks like.
Their Netflix reality show, she's like, I was there in ripped jeans and barefoot and I hugged them and they were so standoffish. So we know she has some kind of an obsession with coming across like the cool girl. Have you guys seen Gone Girl, the movie, and that cool girl monologue? It's really concerning that Meghan looks up to that character and clearly is trying to be her, seeing as she was a psychotic murderer, by the way.
And people are taking the wrong messages away from movies.
Yeah, absolutely. How many Regina Georges have you met? Because I've met a lot.
I can count how many Regina Georges I haven't met. I can't count. Ugh, don't get me started.
The whole thing is, every time I see Harry, because this is not the first time I've read about the Invictus Foundation struggling. Why is he doing this? Because they need partners. They need support. They are failing. They are dwindling. Their documentary was a flop. People are not donating anymore. And it all comes down to, I have to say, Meghan, as you said, because before Meghan, we had the likes of Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. Yeah, why did I struggle with that? Michelle Obama. Getting in ads.
Yeah.
Recorded ads for Invictus. Then they'd show up.
Yep.
Joe Biden showed up as well. This was a big deal.
Yeah.
With leaders of the world attending. And now it has become a joke because, as you said, it has become the Meghan Markle fashion show. Some people say it's become the Harry and Meghan show. No,
Harry's not involved.
Harry's just an afterthought in his own cause.
Yeah, and everywhere Meghan goes, everyone else becomes not only a laughingstock for associating with her, but not even the second in command. Everyone's the support for her.
A prop.
They are extras. The veterans at Invictus are extras because Meghan Markle's there and demands the attention of every single thing around her.
I'm going to get to the marching video because I'm sure we've all had that burned in our retinas and we're never going to unsee it. But there was even a clip of her, just to really prove your point and send it home. There was a disabled individual on a wheelchair at Invictus. I'm not sure I'm going to find the clip. So, just try to remember, bear with me. But she was, or imagine if you haven't seen it, because it's so easy to imagine her doing this.
It might be in the suppressed memories.
Yeah, check that folder. She stops by that wheelchair, bends down, flashes her big Cheshire grin at the camera, and just leaves.
He was a prop.
Exactly.
That's what happens when Meghan Markle is around.
And then, of course, I just mentioned the infamous, you all know, I'm military. It was disgusting for everyone to watch, I'm sure, but it made me feel physically ill, as I have stated a year ago now, to watch her wearing those short shorts, that romper, and those flip-flops. They were designers, Saint Laurent or whatever. Basically flip-flops.
Wait, they're designer flip-flops?
Well, they weren't really flip-flops. They're slippers. But they click-clack when you walk. Those slippers you wear to the beach.
Okay, so they're flip-flops.
Basically.
If they click-clack, they're flip-flops.
Basically, because they made that noise.
Yep.
Flip-flop, flip-flop. So when I saw that was to me, if you're going to ask me what was Meghan's, she doesn't have a rock bottom. We've talked about this because she keeps finding a new one and she's going to get to the core of the earth eventually.
She is everyone else's rock bottom.
But to me, if I had an image that I would relate to, her rock bottom, it would be, forget her squatting on the Ellen show. It would be that marching incident where she looked, as I said a year ago, like a drunk tourist who just happened to see a marching formation and she hopped in front of it and is like smiling like a drunk fool.
She's like a child running around a party being loud and obnoxious, and when the adults all turn around to look at her because she's clearly causing a scene, she's just soaking up the attention. Never mind the adults are disgusted that someone invited a child to the party.
I want to know who allowed her to do that. I know that she's Meghan, and what Meghan wants, Meghan gets, and she doesn't listen. I think part 1 of The Curse of Being a Narcissist was all about that. It was called When Mama Doesn't Know Best, which is a play of, her company, Mama Knows Best. She doesn't listen.
Nope.
And that's why she keeps making a fool out of herself. But I really want to know how people in the Invictus Games couldn't stop her. She must be that much of a tyrant where it's not even... It reminds me of when the palace staff, as I read in Valentine Lowe's book, Courtiers, knew that she shouldn't be wearing those blood diamonds. But they couldn't stop her.
If you find someone who can put Meghan Markle in her place, then you will have found one of the few people on earth with the courage to do what's right, because she really does need that. And I say that knowing that people can jump on that and say, oh, well, that's anti-feminist. Misogynistic. No, this is clearly someone. If she was a man, she would need to be put in her place. Someone needs to tell Meghan no, and she needs to listen to that no, whether it's a matter of she smartens up and realizes that she's made a fool of herself for the last almost however long it's been, or whether it's because that person has the power to make sure that their no is a final no and there's nothing she can do about it.
That is part of the reason, in my opinion, why she left the royal family, because Prince William, and I'm sure other people as well, but we know for a fact it was Prince William because of the fight, and Harry talked about it in Spare. He showed up to confront Meghan.
Yeah.
And she just wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so it turned into, all right, I'm going to talk about your wife. And then Harry didn't take it well and became a brotherly, I'm going to say it's a siblings scuffle.
Yeah.
Which Harry made into some kind of a crime. Like we talked about this 2 years ago, whatever it came out. I have siblings. Who hasn't got into a physical? Is it a good thing to do? No.
Absolutely not. No.
But it's human.
Yep.
We do it. And not excusing him. Bad moment, but very human moment. But he was there to confront her.
Yep.
He had enough of her bullying his staff, not even just his family members, his staff. That's how much he cares. And people like to say William's a bully and a heartless, tyrant. Please.
No, William had the backbone to confront the one person that everyone else seems to be afraid of.
Exactly. And that's why she removed, one of the reasons, because there's also jealousy of Catherine not being the queen. It's all a cocktail. But this was a prime ingredient when she knew William and probably other people we don't know about, Princess Anne potentially, would not stand for her shenanigans. She promptly removed herself after having her bluff called with the half in, half out. She thought the queen would bend to her will. When she didn't, she went, oh, well, I guess.
She's the Queen of England. She's not bending to your will, Meghan. Get your head out of your ass. Jeez.
So basically, the Invictus Games has become a joke because of Meghan Markle's antics. And that marching scene is just a cherry, the rotten, rancid cherry on top of a now once beautiful, fresh cake, which has now also started to rot because, you put something rotten on something, it's contagious. It's going to spread. And that's why Harry is now finding himself in these situations. I don't know for a fact if he was asking NATO for funds. He probably just wants their backing and partnership, and it is military at the end of the day, veterans. But when you connect the dots, when you see how Invictus has been making posts on Twitter or X, asking for donations, you're hearing about people not, withdrawing their donations or their memberships, whatever it's called. It paints a picture.
Yep. If you want Invictus to return to its former glory, get rid of Meghan.
Absolutely. And I would argue now get rid of Harry.
Yep.
Unless he gets his head screwed on straight again and remembers what the Invictus Games is all about. Because we know when we see Harry in those games, he's really in it for the veterans.
Yep.
I can see it. I'm not taking that away from him. But he allows his wife to diminish that, to insult that, to make it out to be a joke.
Yep.
How can anyone argue that their wife loves them or believe in their own minds that their wife loves them if she's taken their pride and joy and ruined it like that?
And I think on that note...
good place to end it.
That was perfect. That was just it. Chef's kiss. That was wonderful.
All right, guys, let us know what you think of everything we talked about today. Mm-hmm. You want to reassure them once again? Because they're all concerned about you.
I'm fine. I didn't even know it was there.
I did.
Yeah. She's like, what happened to your nose? I'm like, what do you mean what happened to my nose? Oh, no, I'm absolutely fine. And
all right.
Seriously, I'm good. Well, I'll see you next week with no bruise.
They know you're fine because I reassured them and I said we'd be here today.
Yep.
I was worried. I woke up in the morning and I quickly turned around to see his nose and I was like, okay, it hasn't gotten worse. So we're all good.
All good.
Thank you so much for your concern. It's incredible how, we're virtually strangers, all of us, and there's so much care and concern in this community, in our little channel here. And we truly appreciate you. And I really want to say from the bottom of my heart that your attitude towards us and this channel, which is, you're not sycophants. Criticism where criticism is due, but you're what keeps me uploading. And I mean it. Otherwise, there's no point. So thank you for being with us. Hope to have you for another 112 episodes.
Yep.
And we'll see you next time.
See you then.